Mentre aspettiamo, inizio a mettere tutto quanto in italiano, scinolingua per sottotitoli italiano. L'ho già messo. Ah, conferma. Oh, porco giù, l'avevo scritto. Tanto vediamo un po' su YouTube. Nel frattempo rolliamo qualche waifu MSMO. Controlliamo, questa è, e controllerei, magari questa è abbastanza valida. Devo arrivare alla vista. No, 36 fa schifo. L'idol master dovrebbero valere quasi tutte tanto. Vediamo un po'. 27 fa cagare. Questo no. Questa no. Vediamo un po' questa. Non so manco se qualcuno è arrivato nel frattempo. Mi dovrebbe scrivere su coso. No, fa schifo. 28 su Discord, così me lo vedo. Questa non credo. Questa, forse questa sì, mi pare di aver già vista da qualche parte una simile, se non lei. Acqua regalecus. Infatti fa schifo, l'ho visto qualcun altro. Astroboy fa cagare a prescindere. Smite fa schifo. E questo fa schifo. Perfetto, finito. Ripreso fra 15 minuti. Vedo 3 messaggi, ma su YouTube non mi compare niente. Ok, diciamo che non ho mai giocato. Non ho visto manco dei video, cioè ho soltanto visto il trailer che mi interessava tempo fa, però è tanto per PC, quindi no. Il cursore finché non è una penna visibile. Il cursore computer. Il computer è una penna visibile sarebbe tipo così, ma diciamo che faccio sempre a medio, che come lo impostano loro, diciamo, il classico. Ok, dopo la sposto. Che ore sono? Sono le 21:30 precise. Questo è mattino, pomeriggio, ok, quindi 9:30. Oddio. No, sono troppo avanti per guardare il telefono. 21:30. Ok. 31. No! Si aggiunge nemmeno, vabbè. Ho messo pronto quando era il 31. Vabbè, adesso rivelerò tutto quanto. Anche non posso cambiare impostazioni. Audio, comandi, generale. Non c'è orario? No, vabbè. Ci teneremo un minuto prima. Never. The end is never. Never is the end. Pensa che il gruppo no, anzi, meglio non dirlo.
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on the keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year.
Lui anch'io sto al
Although
lavoro.
others might have considered it soul-winning, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy.
Dai, Stanley.
And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened. This complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
Qua c'è alzarmi. Ah, ok. È fuori dal mio ufficio. Guidami il gioco. Dove devo
All
andare?
his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
C'è un numero della stanza riunioni o vado così a cazzo, sempre dritto? Questa porta, magari? Sembra più no, non è una stanza di riunioni. Infatti non posso anche aprirla. Forse aumenterei un po' la sensibilità io, I hate Mondays. Di qua. Sì, aumentiamo un po' la sensibilità se si può. Mamma mia, oh. Oh, un po' più veloce.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Che devo iniziare con la sinistra? Ok. Chissà se
Yet there was
succede.
not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Chi è cambiato se non c'è nessuno? Che bello, è da parlare meno se non vuoi essere licenziato. Aspetta, si sta aprì? No, me lo sono immaginato. Quindi sopra
Coming
le
to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his
proviamo a
boss's
scendere, vediamo un po'
office.
cosa succede. Non mi posso tipo accovacciare, mi sembra tipo che si possa leggere.
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment for no reason at all? None of it made any
Che
logical
cazzo?
sense.
È tutto
And
un
as
loop?
Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they
Beh,
simply repeated?
che è PT
Maybe
che
Stanley
stanze si
said to
ripetono?
himself, this is all too strange. This can't be real. And at last, he came to the conclusion that had been on the tip of his tongue. He just hadn't found the words for it. I'm dreaming! He yelled. This is all a dream. Oh, what a relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually gone. He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy after all. And he thought to himself, I suppose I'll wake up soon. I'll have to
Ok.
go back to my boring real-life job pushing
Prossima
buttons.
volta seguiamo
I may as
direttamente
well
la storia.
enjoy
Aver
this while
preso
I'm
la
still
strada
lucid.
sbagliata.
So, he imagined himself flying and began to gently float above the ground. Then he imagined himself soaring through space on a magical star field, and it too appeared. It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found it particularly strange.
Io sto continuando
He
ad andare
was
avanti, ma
dreaming
chiedo
about a
perché.
voice describing me thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he thought. And while he thought it all very odd, and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep, he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever
Con
been
L1
in
mi
his life.
accovaccio, anche con L2.
Now, hearing the voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream. So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of the world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment, and my wife, and my job. All I want is my life
Aspetta, c'era qualcosa?
the way it's always been.
No.
My life is normal.
Non ti mai c'è qualcosa? Prima che me lo immagino.
Fine. I am okay.
Questo è quello di prima.
Stanley began screaming. Please, someone, wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss, I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me
Che è
I'm
sta
real.
cosa
I must
diventando
be
rossa?
real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black.
Basta mi faccia un jump scare
This
con
is the
qualcuno
story
davanti.
of a woman named Mariella.
Cosa?
Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy, this much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and
Ho
what
sbagliato.
isn't. It was comforting to think this. And in a
Nick.
certain way, seeing this man made her feel better.
Vorrei fare la
But then she
battuta
remembered the meeting she had
su lui
scheduled
e
for that day. The very important
sul
people
gatto.
whose impressions of her would affect her career.
Su di sta
By
meglio.
extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down.
Mi
at the
chiedo
body.
se ho perso il gioco, diciamo, visto che non ho seguito le indicazioni, ero curioso. Mi sa di sì, mo qui sta a caricare. Vediamo un po' che è successo. Se mi fa ricominciare dalle scale o cosa. Ho già perso nei primi 10 minuti, di cui 5 soltanto a girare in quei corridoi. Quel loop, vediamo un po'. Ok, questo è il mio ufficio.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Seguiremo sempre le sue indicazioni a sto punto da adesso, perché rifare una cosa di mezz'ora.
Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors. He entered the door on his left. Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Andiamo dal boss, stavolta saliamo le
Coming
scale.
to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Nuovo record. No, questo è il bagno. Eccolo qui.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this, what dark secret was being held from him. What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845.
Ah,
But
qua.
of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this.
Perché c'è sta la cosa del pin? Ah, eccolo. Numero 2485? Oh cazzo.
Stanley just sat around twiddling his thumbs. Trying to input anything on the device was useless, since he could never possibly know that the
2845.
combination was 2845. Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
Che è un set del cinema? Ma tipo caso di sotto o... Vabbè, andiamo. Ok. Meglio così che cadere di sotto. E primo capitolo fatto.
Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long. Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Qui invece scappo. Ma di qua non ci vado, se lui mi dice di andare dritto.
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out?
Questo stava pure nel trailer, mi ricordo tutte le TV e sta stanza. Vediamo poi se c'era pure qualcos'altro.
Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing.
Io che il numero sono 4. Era il 472 tipo? Era una cosa così il mio numero? Un po' 472. Eccolo lì. Non c'è niente. Mi sbaglio io.
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly?
247, vediamo un po'. 247. 247, dovrei essere lì. No, devo andare all'inizio live ma sti gran cazzi.
No.
Vediamo un po'.
He refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never. It was unthinkable. Wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy or sad or content. Walking, eating,
Lì
working,
che c'è?
all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
Verifichiamo. Off, quindi. Beh. Ho sbagliato a premere?
Blackness and a rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over? Yes. He had won. He had defeated the machine, unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold?
Beh, il cielo è fatto bene,
sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him, for it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be.
Beh, bello il tuo paesaggio. Pure il punto lì, un po' mi interessa.
It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door.
Se mi fa andare avanti, però.
Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
È tutto un sogno. Ah, perché finisci il gioco? Che è serio? Dati il trofeo, finisci il gioco. Tieni il tuo primo trofeo, beh, bello. Buh. Cioè, no, signori. Ho speso 20 euro, eh. No. Col cazzo. No, 20 euro non mi puoi dire che è già finito. No.
All his co-workers were gone. What could it mean?
Dai.
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Che cazzo significa? Non ho capito. Che devo fare, on?
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his left. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Ah, yes, truly a room worth admiring. It had really been worth the detour after all, but eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left. And so he detoured through the maintenance section, walked straight ahead to the opposite door, and got back on track.
No, poniamo quel pulsante, mi sa che mi riporta.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to
Infatti
go
mo
up
ci
to his
ritroviamo a
boss's
fare
office.
on.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Tipo, la porta è aperta, no? Oh, la porta è aperta. No. Proviamo a salire. Cosa c'è di sopra? Visto che se questo è il boss finale, diciamo. Questo è Torbjorn. Un cazzo ci vuole salire? Dove cazzo mi sta a portare? La stessa stanza di prima. Ha giusto per farmi un giro con la musica?
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. What could it mean? Stanley wondered aloud to nobody. He began wildly tearing through papers on the boss's desk, pulling books off the shelf, looking behind paintings, desperate for clues to his situation. But his attention was caught by a keypad behind the boss's desk. What could its purpose be? In fact, this keypad guarded the terrible secret that lay. Stanley was in such a rush to get through the story as quickly as possible, he didn't even have a single minute to just let the narrator talk. That kind of anxiety isn't healthy, so he relaxed for a few moments with some calming New Age music.
Oh, cazzo. Io ho parlato troppo presto.
Feeling soothed and rejuvenated, Stanley calmly walked forward into the opened passageway.
Qui non c'è niente. Quindi ora proviamo a premere on. Perché 20 euro me lo fai pagare per questo gioco, 20 euro col cazzo.
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read
Prima
Mind Control Facility. Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his violent death.
Torniamo indietro. Non vedo morte violenta. Mi ha convinto.
Stanley thought better of it and realized he simply had too much to live for. The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out?
Tipo Minecraft, no? Quando saltelli per le caverne per andare dritto più veloce.
Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing.
Eccolo là, forse sono quello lì, il 2, 3, 4? È una cosa strana quel TV.
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true.
L'unica TV strana, oltre a quello lì licenziato.
Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No. He refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never. It was unthinkable. Wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
E mo faremo on. Vediamo un po' che succede.
Oh, Stanley, you didn't just activate the controls, did you? After they kept you enslaved all these years, you go and you try to take control of the machine for yourself. Is that what you wanted? Control? Oh, Stanley, I applaud your effort, I really do. But you need to understand, there's only so much that machine can do. You were supposed to let it go, turn the controls off, and leave. If you want to throw my story off track, you're going to have to do much better than that. I'm afraid you don't have nearly the power you think you do. For example, and I believe you'll find this pertinent, Stanley suddenly realized he had just initiated the network's emergency detonation system. In the event that this machine is activated without proper DNA identification, nuclear detonators are said to explode, eliminating the entire complex. How long until detonation then? Let's say 2 minutes. Now this is making things a little more fun, isn't it, Stanley?
Bene.
It's your time to shine. You are the star. It's your
Stanley.
story now. Shape it to your heart's desires. Oh, this is much better than what I had in mind. What a shame we have so
Quella
little
lì,
time
quella
left to
porta?
enjoy it. Mere
Questa qua sopra?
moments until the bomb goes off. But what precious moments each one of them is. More time to talk about you, about me, where we're going, what all this means. I barely know where to start. What's that? You'd like to know where your co-workers are? A moment of solace before you're
Che
obliterated.
cazzo?
Alright, I'm in a good mood.
Devo premere tutti i pulsanti tipo? Lì c'era l'1 l'ho premuto, poi c'era il 2, il 4, il 5, ma...
I turned off the machine. I set you free. Of course, that was merely in this instance of the story. Sometimes when I tell it, I simply let
Dov'è
you
il
sit
2?
there in your
Lì c'è
office
il 3.
forever, pushing buttons endlessly and then dying alone. Other times,
Uno, il
I
2.
let the office sink into the ground, swallowing everyone inside, or I let it burn to a crisp. I have to say this, though, this version of events has been rather amusing. Watching you try to make sense of everything and take back the control wrested away from you, it's quite rich. I almost hate to see it go. But I'm sure whatever I come up with on the next go-around
Quattro.
will be even better. My goodness, only 34 seconds left. But I'm enjoying this so much. You know what? To hell with it. I'm going to put some extra time on the clock. Why not? These are precious additional seconds, Stanley. Time doesn't grow on trees. Oh dear me, what's the matter, Stanley? Is it that you have no idea where you're going or what you're supposed to be doing right now? Or did you just assume when you saw that timer that something in this room was capable of turning it off? I mean, look at you. Running from button to button, screen to screen, clicking on every little thing in this room. These numbered buttons, no, these colored ones. Or maybe this big red button, or this door. Everything, anything, something here will save me. Why would you think that, Stanley? That this video game can be beaten? Won? Solved? Do you have any idea what your purpose in this place is? Stanley, you're in for quite a disappointment. But here's a spoiler for you. That timer isn't a catalyst to keep the action moving along. It's just seconds ticking away to your death. You're only still playing instead of watching a cutscene because I want to watch you for every moment that you're powerless.
Alternativi rimasti per cosa?
Made humble.
Da dove?
This is not a challenge. It's a tragedy. You wanted to control this world, that's fine. But I'm going to destroy it first, so you can't.
427, no, avevo ragione io, Nick.
That's 30 seconds you have left to struggle.
Questa è una botola?
30 seconds until
No.
a big boom and then nothing. No ending here. Just you being blown to pieces. Will you cling desperately to your frail life, or will you let it go peacefully? Another choice. Make it count, or don't. It's all the same to me, all a part of the joke. And believe me, I will be laughing at every second of your inevitable life from the moment we fade in until the moment I say, happily ever after.
Interessante. Fine? Ma non ho capito. Questo gioco è questo poco, ma posso fare quel cazzo mi pare? Questo è il fatto. Sono morto. Non potevo uscire. Non riuscivo a trovare l'uscita. No, 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 no. Allora ragazzi, 20 euro per questo. Cioè, scusa, eh.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
No, dai, non può
Stanley
essere
went
vero
around
così.
touching every little thing in the office, but it didn't make a single difference, nor did it advance the story in any way. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office.
Aspetta.
Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Io non entro nel bagno. Perché il boss sa, il capo sa. Allora, diciamo che un po' di inglese l'ho perso, ecco, diciamo. Tipo lo stesso. Dov'è? Qui. Los, non so, non mi ricordo che cazzo significa. Poi. Poi qui c'è già stato, no? C'è l'ascensore di merda. Forse devo andare in giù però. Non me ne frega proprio un cazzo.
Okay, I think we all know the drill by now. Blah, blah, blah. Dark secrets, the keypad. Stanley pushes some buttons. Oh, hey, look, it's a new passageway. Kill surprise.
Ho fatto tutto quanto te stavolta. Non ho fatto io. Vediamo che mi cambia qualcosa con la storia. Cioè ricomincia lui apposta e più ricomincio più cambia qualcosina. Stavolta ha fatto lui la parte qui dei pulsanti, quindi c'è il codice. Si sarà rotta a noi cambiasse qualcosa. Ma proviamo ad andare verso l'uscita per la morte violenta. Anche lui non dice qualcosa di nuovo.
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Non stavolta andiamo per la morte violenta, vediamo un po' che
Although
succede.
this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his violent death. The door behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track. At
Non
this
voglio
point,
tornare.
Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death.
Bene, si è spappolato a terra. Beh, Nikki, è bella, È giusta?
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley was inched closer and closer to his demise, he reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever. Stanley can't see the bigger picture. He doesn't know the real story, trapped forever in his narrow vision of what this world is. Perhaps his death was of no great loss, like plucking the eyeballs from a blind man. And so he resigned and willingly accepted this violent end to his brief and shallow life. Farewell, Stanley.
Farewell, Stanley, cried the narrator, as Stanley was led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, Stanley was obliterated as the machine crushed every bone in his body, killing him instantly.
Andiamo avanti.
And yet it would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as alive as ever. What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish?
Ok, ma faccio Mussolini, mi affaccio e faccio dichiarazioni di guerra.
When every path you can walk has been created for you long in advance, death becomes meaningless, making life the same. Do you see now? Do you see that Stanley was already dead from the moment he hit start?
Le posizioni degli uffici, il mio qual è questo? Schedare. Riaccendiamolo, scusa, non volevo spegnerlo. Vabbè, li spegniamo tutti. Che faccio? Scelgo la porta fortunata? Questa? Questa? Oppure questa? Suoni usati nel gioco quando vengono premuti. È un mix tra il battito di un tasto non sintetizzato. Sono morto la prima volta, Niki. Quando ho detto che non sono pazzo. Modelli, vabbè, cazzi e mazzi, crediti. Sarà la manutenzione. Ok. Dice l'ufficio, ma non vedo niente d'ufficio. Ah, sono gay? Questa la fa lo screen, eh. Ah! Questa è la relax. Che cos'è? Camera caffè, sarà relax? Qui c'è un telefono. Vediamo un po' che succede. Qualcuno mi chiamerà? Tenete l'appartamento. Vediamo un po'. No. Ascensore merci, cazzi e mazzi. Mi chiede se c'è qualcosa da tipo da fare. Leve dello zending. Vediamo un po' di leve. No. Zending. Chiamo questo manco che cazzo è. Questa schermata mostra una prima versione del finale noto come Zending. Qui ci sono diversi finali. Resume the game. Aspetta, Ah, il gioco adesso è in pausa. Vinci il gioco, impostazioni, torna al menu. Ah, questo è il menu, vabbè. Questo è l'uscita, l'ascensore sala monitor. Finale della libertà. È quello che ho fatto io, questo è il finale della libertà così come era in versione beta. Quindi sono tutte cose. Quindi sono tanti finali diversi, E noi quindi alla fine dovremo farli tutti per finire tutto il gioco, diciamo. Anche perché ci sono dei trofei e non mi ha dato ancora il platino. Chissà quale sarà il finale bello. Sono certo di zona sotterranea. Questo l'abbiamo fatto, vabbè, dove siamo stati?
Oh, I don't know. How about they're throwing a surprise party for him for all his button pushing? Does that sound plausible to you? Shoot. Well, try the other one then.
Le prime registrazioni sono stati usati nel gioco finale. E però non le ho tradotte. Sono curioso. che faccio? Ricominciamo, vediamo un po' se faccio un altro finale. Dai. Chissà cosa succede nell'ufficio del capo. Se posso fare il finale nell'ufficio del capo. Qui dove sono entrato, no? Sì, con tutti i modellini e tutto quanto. Quindi sono fatto tutto il giro. Vediamo 4-3, 4-3-6 se c'è qualcosa, tipo. Tipo l'ascensore, no? Io sono andato su, ma se ero già in zona di guerra. Usi dello sviluppo, progettiamo il finale in campo di battaglia e combattere gli alieni. L'action game sarebbe diventato seziente. Perfetto, quindi questa sarebbe stata la base aliena. E aspetta, questo qui è Subnautica, oh, lo riconosco. Subnautica è una cosa simile a questa. Questo no, la struttura è diversa. All'interno, quello lì di destra. Quindi quello che sono gay, va bene, sarò gay. Qui invece non sono salito prima. 427 è la mia stanza. Stanley. Il primo fu creato a novembre 2020. Ah, ok, sono le 3 varie stanze che hanno cambiato qui. La disposizione della scrivania, della tazza, di varie cose. Questa, vabbè, dai, mi sembra uguale a questa. Aspetta, che cazzo cambia? Che sono qui quei 3 cose che trova le differenze, lo scatolone là sotto. E mi sa basta, tutto il resto è uguale. Con qualche scartoffio in più. Vabbè, possiamo anche ricominciare, che qua? Che ci posso morire di sto ascensore? Aspetta, accesso?
Oh, look at these two. How they wish to destroy one another. How they wish to control one another. How they both wish to be free. Can you see? Can you see how much they need one another? No, perhaps not. Sometimes these things cannot be seen. But listen to me. You can still save these two. You can stop the program before they both fail. Turn off your PlayStation. There's no other way to beat this day. As long as you move forward, you'll be walking someone else's path. Stop now and it'll be your only true choice. Whatever you do, choose it. Don't let time choose for you. Don't let...
Beh, se avete spento la play non sapeva che sarebbe finita la live. Ce l'avrei potuto anche fare, eh. E quindi diamo un trofeo. Magari. Se spegnevo la play e poi riaccendevo il gioco. O magari adesso che è riattivo sono immortale. Perché il pulsante è rosso? Non ci dovrebbe essere qualcosa. Tipo una chiamata registrata.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Ma è rimasto qualcosa tra i denti. Questa stanza è aperta? No. Ok. Ok, me la sono tolto. Forse è un pezzo di tonno, che cazzo ne so.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Wow. Yes,
Relax.
this room. What a beautiful room. What a gorgeous, gorgeous room. Thank goodness Stanley had taken this detour on his way to the meeting room. Life without having experience, but eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
E invece andassi dritto, cosa mi fai?
Stanley was
A4.
so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
Grazie, grazie. Oh, che cosa succede qui? Comunque sono F4, non A4, Manco i fogli conosce. Pezzente. Jump from the cargo lift is moving 1000. Jumping off the cargo 5000. Andiamo poi in quella stanza, si può aprire. Ma che è un codice? Ah no, serve un tesserino che ancora non abbiamo.
Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. Someone you've forgotten about. Please, stop trying to make every decision by yourself. Now, I'm not asking for me, I'm asking for her. This is it, Stanley. Your chance to redeem yourself. To put your work aside. To let her back into your life. She's been waiting.
Chi sta aspettando? Chi? Ghost? Lo sta aspettando? Porca puttana.
That's her, Stanley. You need to be the one to do this. To reach out to her. If
Se risponde mi dirà 7 giorni.
Another, then pick up the phone.
Beh, mi sa manco 7 giorni, era 7 anni secondi, ma non uscito. Non posso muovere niente. Ah, ok.
Oh, Stanley, is that you? Hold on, sweetie. Sorry to keep you waiting. I'm just pulling the bread out of the oven. All right. Okay, there we go.
C'ho
All right,
paura.
now, I want you to come in and tell me all about
Your day.
Gotcha. Oh, come on. Did you actually think you had a loving wife who'd want to commit their life to you? I'm trying to make a point here, Stanley. I'm trying to get you to see something. Come inside. Let me show you what's really going on here. This is a very sad story about the death of a man named Stanley. Stanley is quite a boring fellow. He has a job that demands nothing of him, and every button that he pushes is a reminder of the inconsequential nature of his existence. Look at him there, pushing buttons, doing exactly what he's told to do. Now he's pushing a button. Now he's eating lunch. Now he's going home. Now he's coming back to work. One might even feel sorry for him, except that he's chosen this life.
Però gli altri pulsanti non fa niente, quindi.
In his mind, he can go on fantastic adventures. From behind his desk, Stanley dreamed of wild expeditions into the unknown, fantastic discoveries of new lands. It was wonderful. And each day that he returned to work was a reminder that none of it would ever happen to him. And so he began to fantasize about his own job. First, he imagined that one day while at work, he stepped up from his desk to realize that all of his co-workers, his boss, everyone in the building had suddenly vanished off the face of the earth. The thought excited him terribly.
Sono le 11:20? Giusto così per chiedere.
So, he went further. He imagined that he came to 2 open doors and that he could go through either. At last, choice. It barely even mattered what lay behind each door. The mere thought that his decisions would mean something was almost too wonderful to behold. As he wandered through this fantasy world, he began to fill it with many possible paths and destinations. Down one path lay an enormous round room with monitors and mind controls. And down another was a yellow line that weaved in many directions. And down another was a game with a baby. And he called it the Stanley Parable. It was such a wonderful fantasy, and so in his head he relived it again, and then again, and again, over and over, wishing beyond hope that it would never end, that he might always feel this free. Surely there's an answer down some new path, mustn't there be? Perhaps if he played just one more time. But there is no answer. How could there possibly be? In reality, all he's doing is pushing the same buttons he always has. Nothing has changed. The longer he spends here, the more invested he gets, the more he forgets which life is the real one. And I'm trying to tell him this, that in this world he can never be anything but an observer, that as long as he remains here, he's slowly killing himself. But he won't listen to me. He won't stop. Here, watch this. Stanley, the next time the screen asks you to push a button, do not do it.
Poi dice che si sta una puttana. Vabbè, quindi così si ricomincia. Se non fa altro. Vabbè,
You
facciamo.
see? Can he just not hear me? How can I tell him in a way that he'll understand that every second he remains here, he's electing to kill himself? How can I get him to see what I see? How can I make him look at himself? I suppose I can't, not in the way I want him to. But I don't make the rules. I simply play to my intended purpose, the same as Stanley. We're not so different, I suppose. I'll try once more to convey all this to him. I'm compelled to. I must. Perhaps, well, maybe this time he'll see. Maybe this time. And I tried again, and Stanley pushed a button. And I tried again, and Stanley pushed a button. And I tried.
Questo è morto. Non è mai la fine. Comunque mi ho fatto probabilmente tutti i video. Stavolta c'è una musichetta.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Ho contenuto.
Oh, new content? What does that mean, new content?
Direi che i nuovi contenuti bisogna fare poco alla volta col tempo. Tipo oggi abbiamo fatto veramente diversi finali. E se cosa viene facciamo un po' di Fall Guys. Per non fare tutto quanto subito, anche perché non sappiamo quanto dura, quanti finali sono.
Hello, and thank you for playing the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. As you may know, the Stanley Parable was a video game released in 2013 on home computers. After receiving critical and commercial success, it was expanded upon in 2022 with the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, a reimagining of the game for consoles and home computers. The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe features exciting new content that broadens and expands the world of the Stanley Parable, delighting audiences the world over. Please, step inside and see what thrilling new adventures await in the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe.
Oh, well, this sounds delightful. I'm very excited to see the thrilling new Ultra Deluxe content. Oh, well, this sounds delightful. I'm very excited to see the thrilling new Ultra Deluxe content. Okay, so far it's an elevator. Nothing special yet, but I'm sure it's just the beginning of a mesmerizing adventure.
Beh, sì, se mi fai partire.
Is it broken? What's going on here? Should we be moving somewhere or... oh, there we go. All right, finally, at long last, it's on to the new content. I've never been more ready. Let's do it.
Nel frattempo scrivo io a Ghost. Vediamo un po'.
I have to say, initial impressions of Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, mostly tedious. It's as if them... oh, okay. Let's see the content. Gimme the content, Stanley.
Vediamo un po'. Un attimo. Vedo dei messaggi, magari è Ghost. Visto che non voglio fare tutti i finali adesso, no? I nuovi contenuti, che dici? Fall Guys barra Fortnite? Che 36? Salti rimanenti.
The jump circle?
Ciccio. Puoi anche riaccendere, non è che mo c'è il tempo di cooldown per ritornare, 3, 2, 1. Che è? Ok.
Is that it? Surely
Infatti.
that's not all the new content. There has to be something else, right?
Ah. Che buffone Ghost. C'è più ridicolo Ghost che sto gioco.
Initial impressions of this game are not positive. It's just elevators and jumping. Is this what passes for exciting new content? If this is new content, then I could just read you the whole dictionary. There's 20 hours of new content right there. Hell, I could counter 30 trillion. You could put that on the box. The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, now with over 1,000 hours of new content. And if... oh, wait. There's more. Very good. Yes. I knew there had to be something else. Let's see it. I'm ready for whatever it is. That's it? Oh, you've got to be kidding me. You see, Stanley? This is what happens when greedy video game developers with
Mi
no
ricorda
respect
un
for their
episodio di
fanbase rush
SpongeBob.
a cheap expansion to market for reason other than to make an easy dollar. And don't get me started on the level of craftsmanship that's gone into it. In fact, I'm looking right now at the game's trophies, and it's hard to believe one of them actually says, "Test trophy, please ignore." What quality assurance department signed off on this? I'm infuriated and I'm offended, and I intend to find these people on Twitter and hold them personally accountable. It's my fault, Stanley. I built up too much anticipation around the new content, I'm afraid. It could never have lived up to such expectations. If you're still with me, why don't we just reset the game, and we'll try to get back to what the Stanley Parable is really about. No frills, no gimmicks. Just you and me having a great time together like always.
C'era questo episodio di SpongeBob. Sono d'accordo. Beh, c'era questo episodio di SpongeBob in cui Paci Pirata, diciamo, la versione, il fan numero 1 di SpongeBob, trova l'episodio perduto ed è tipo una merda. C'è lui che cammina, SpongeBob che cammina in modo diverso, finisce il video e lui, cosa? Tutto qui? E quando sono arrivato lì, uguale. Ho ricordato quello subito. Questo però non è il mio ufficio, Ciccio. Questo è un altro ufficio. Andiamo un po' qui. Qua.
Psst. Stanley, come over here. In the vent. I want to show you something.
Bene, ora deve essere a posto. Devo anche un po' d'acqua mentre carica.
Okay, you remember how cheap and unsatisfying the new Ultra Deluxe content turned out to be? Well, it got me thinking about the past, and how much better the Stanley Parable used to be. So I made something special, and tucked it away here where the game's developers won't find it. Just our little secret. Take a look.
Che è del ring.
I call
Oh,
it the Memory Zone. It's where I've been storing all my favorite memories so I can relive the peak experiences of my life whenever I want. Experiences like the launch of the Stanley Parable on PC. You see, Stanley, doesn't the Memory Zone remind you of how wonderful Stanley Parable was before it was sullied with a cheap PlayStation port? Remember back in October of 2013 when the game originally launched? Back then, video games had integrity. Back then, it all meant something. Oh, the waste.
che è qui? Lo spiaccichiamo sto insetto, vaffanculo. Allora, io film in television arts, world to Stanley Parable. Ah, c'è scritto già sto vaso, ma direi che sì, è meglio questo. In qualsiasi categoria, cioè, diciamo, sia questo che l'1 che il 2. Spero che cosa sia ancora qui, così sa quello che sto a dire. Meglio Stanley. Sono le 20:13, no, io ho messo un altro orario, ciccio. Ciccio, è sbagliato orario. Mi carica più messaggi, mi sa che devo riattivare. Ah, invece è ancora qui. Lui è ancora qui. No, questa è la mancia per Ghost perché smette di dire di finire cazzate. Finisco di dire cazzate. Oh, che cos'è? Sono i trofei? To get this achievement. Ah, vabbè, dopo lo scopriremo qual è. Ah. Ok ragazzi, questa è la mia ultima live per 5 anni su sto gioco. Ci rivediamo nel 2027. E... bella. Releasing today.
And over here is where I keep reviews of the Stanley Parable. Like this stunning triumph of games journalism, 10 out of 10 from Destructoid.com. James Stephanie Sterling writes, and I quote, "Where so many games that aspire to be more than games end up less than any form of art, Stanley Parable strives and then succeeds to be every
Quanto
game
gatto
ever
simpatico
created."
Ghost, eh?
Did you hear that, Stanley?
È super simpatico, così
Every
simpatico che
game
adesso viene
ever
pure su
created.
Fortnite.
That's how grand and all-encompassing the original Stanley Parable was. It was literally every game ever created. It was Skyrim, it was Persona 3, it was all of them, and now it's nothing. It's no games at all. It isn't even the Stanley Parable anymore. It's just
Vediamo un po' che
husk
dice.
now. A lifeless husk with an hour of new elevator content.
E che cazzo significa? Se non mi danno la patente perché sono stronzo, perché faccio 4 errori su 3. Oh, poverino. E qua si vede che questo qui sarà Ghost, il buffone dell'anno, il pagliaccio. A pagliaccio. Su Forno sa guidare una macchina. Su Forno sa guidare una macchina? Ma che stai scherzando? Che ti ho fatto un drift del cacchio e ti ho fatto scappare da quella situazione.
This time from GameSpot.com. The Stanley Parable is both a richly stimulating commentary on the nature of choice in games and one that offers some of the most enjoyable, surprising and rewarding choices I've ever been confronted with in a game. 9 out of 10. Don't you get it, Stanley? The game was perfect. It didn't need anything else. It didn't need new content. All they had to do was
E
transport it
intanto
in
io ho
pristine
registrato un
condition
video
along to the
oggi da
PlayStation
40
home
persone a
dump.
12.
And they couldn't even do that. Couldn't resist the urge to go meddling with a beloved franchise.
No, infatti è Ghost. Beh, qui è aperto. Fammi passare. Fammi usare la bici, fammi fare qualcosa. Fammi uscire da qui. Quella faccia felice. Devo ritornare.
These were simpler times, Stanley. What I wouldn't give to go back, to have it all over again. Wait, hang on. I don't recall this part of the memory zone before. What's this? What's down here? Oh, no. Oh, God, no, Stanley. It's a collection of reviews from Pressurized Gas, the extremely popular online storefront for computer games. I haven't looked at these in years. I can't even imagine what's been collecting down here.
Ci sarà Ghost che scriverà su Facebook quelli di Fortnite.
Honestly, I could not be bothered to play this game to full completion. The narrator is obnoxious and unfunny, with his humor and dialogue proving to be more irritating than entertaining. Unfunny! I'm not trying to be funny. I'm trying to make a serious work of art. I suppose I could write up a handful of gags to insert into the Stanley parable, but the
Ma
game
guarda,
is already such a
Ghost non è
densely
divertente quanto lui,
web of profound
E lui non fa ridere.
philosophical insights that I can't even imagine where I'd have the room to stick them.
Guarda, guarda.
Okay, let's see what this one says. While the idea for the game is good, for someone who prefers non-linear games, this preachiness gets annoying fast. Preachy? Stanley? I'm not preachy, am I? You can tell me if I'm preachy. Honestly, you can. Oh, goodness. This is actually quite shocking for me. Well, to be honest, I had always thought of the game's dialogue as being rather terse to begin with. You can't know how much fluff I cut from the game to get it to feel as light and airy as it... Well, I always thought it did, but maybe it wasn't. Oh dear. What an awful memory to have to hold on to.
Questo è
Black marks on my otherwise
casa
unimpeachable
di Ghost.
track record. I feel like a failure. Like I let these people down. Perhaps the Stanley parable isn't quite as sterling as I always remembered.
Meglio questo che della Last of Us 2. Di qua non si capisce. Sì, credo.
What's this one got to say? You constantly have to stop doing anything so the narrator can catch up with his long-winded explanations of what's happening. I wish there was a skip button. A skip button? Well, yes. Yes, I think we can do that. If I'm truly too preachy, then maybe letting you skip ahead for just a moment, surely it couldn't hurt. Not if it means we can strike these negative reviews from the record. Only positive reviews of the Stanley parable. That's my motto today, and it's always been my motto. I'd do anything for the customer, Stanley. Yes, a skip button we shall have. And here it is. Go ahead and give it a shot. I'll pop you forward in time so that the second my incessant droning starts to bore you, with just the push of a button, you'll have zipped right past it. It's what the players have been asking for, and I'm very proud to have delivered. No more listening to me rambling on and on and on. No. The Stanley Parable is a game for the... Oh, you're back, you see. You were only frozen in time for a few minutes, but it was plenty of time for me to deliver a long, rambling monologue full of unnecessary verbal flourishes and lengthy ruminations on the nature of choice in video games. Of course, I happen to believe it was perhaps one of my more profound... Well, there, sport. You really did catch me rambling on a bit, didn't you? But that's the power of the button. The minute I start to go off on a thoughtless display of self-absorption, it's right at your fingertips to go poof and it's all over. I
Ah,
can't wait to see what Cookie 9 will say about this, and whether they'll edit the rating of their pressurized gas review, or at least change some of the wording, perhaps. To be honest, I don't even know if one can change their review in the first place. I guess I should become better educated on how exactly pressurized gas works. Perhaps that would have been a smart thing to check on before I went on about this whole exercise of making the skip button. Although I have to imagine that after seeing the... Okay, welcome back, Stanley. Now, I should say that the amount of time the button has been skipping through is becoming longer and longer. That last one was, well, I want to say maybe 30, 45 minutes? It's not unendurable by any means, but it's, well, there's really only so much I can ramble on to myself about. I know, it's shocking, isn't it? But it... Stanley, please don't push the button again. It's been 12 hours. You've just been frozen there. I don't know why the skips are getting longer, but they're really, truly getting longer. And my God, there's no way out of the room. Stanley, the door is gone. It's completely gone.
l'ho visto
I've
pure
looked at
prima.
it from every angle. I've checked every one of those walls 1,000 times. And there's no door, Stanley. There's no door. There's just you and the button, and if you keep pressing it, I have no idea what will happen. I have no idea how long I'll be made to sit here and... Oh, Stanley, you're back. You're back. Oh, my goodness. I have someone to talk to again. Stanley, I think it's been a week. Or 2 weeks. I've been sitting here all that time, just sitting here, not a single person to speak with. And you'd think that that's just how it's always been, right? Me talking, and you saying nothing. Would you think that it's exactly the same as always? Doesn't that feel like what we've already been doing? Me just talking? But it isn't.
Vediamo un po' fin dove arriva.
Oh, hello. It's you. You're here again. Welcome. I have had time to think about you and about us and about everything we've been through. I've had so much time.
Cosa?
I stopped keeping
80
track
messaggi? Prima era 40, ora è 80? Ho fatto un salto di messaggi?
Not moved for one entire year. Let me describe it for you. To begin with, there is only regret.
Zitti. Qual è? Mi riavviare la live. Ok, quello scatta, questo è caduto. Le piante qui sono del tutto cadute. E continuiamo a skippare.
But they didn't understand the game was never meant to be funny. It was meant to have a point. It was meant to speak to the human condition. But where are the jokes? Where are the jokes? They bemoaned, they screamed, they gnashed their teeth and said, entertain us. It wasn't enough. They had to leave a pathetic little thumbs down review and make all of their pitiful demands.
Fammi uscire. Barra muori, barra quel cazzo che è. Io ho sempre tipo che qui dietro compaia una porta, vediamo poi. Sua. Finiamo sta parte qua del bottone. Bene. Saltiamo. Sta entrando nell'acqua stavolta. Ok. Andiamo un po', mi sa che dovremmo annegare, Bene. Diciamo che siamo annegati, va. Ah, ora sì, si vede qualcosa. Tipo per salire non posso, sempre mi sa che devo aspettare che casca tutto il muro. Ecco. No. Andiamo fin dove arriva. Tutto distrutto. Dai, tanto una scala, qualcosa. Non credo che sia tutto qui. E sto rumore non mi piace, quindi andiamo avanti. Vediamo un po' se rimane così. Ah, ok, stavolta il pulsante è caduto. Ah, eccolo qui l'uscita. Si può riattivare, eh? Non lo so. Ok, non va più. Quindi devo fare tutti questi salti. Ok, Minecraft, il deserto? Ma c'è non si sarà un tempio da qualche parte. Allora, lì vedo qualcosa in fondo. Non che non sia sulla TV, ma no. Morirò di caldo e di sete? E si ricomincerà. Sarà così. Sono morto. Allora, direi che come prima giornata va bene così. Tutti gli altri finali DLC, cazzi e mazzi li faremo un'altra volta. Allora, è iniziato il giorno di battaglia contro Were Heroes, ma quello l'hanno scritto bene. Direi stacco, vabbè, stacca adesso, tanto abbiamo finito, siamo morti, ok, stacchiamo adesso. Andiamo giusto avanti a vedere un po' dove è la nuova stanza DLC.
Oh, won't we all just laugh and laugh at the time I thought everyone had gone missing?
Qui c'è un nuovo contenuto. New content. Quindi avanti non c'è più niente, eh. Vabbè, allora qua spegniamo. È bella. Ricominci il gioco da capo. Impostare il menu. Cominciare il gioco da capo. Giusto se c'è un trofeo che dice tipo la seconda volta che ricominci fai questa cosa. Una cosa così. Io dovrò vedere. Anche perché tanto per fare il trofeo devo fare tutti i finali. Quindi già. E poi li dovrò fare. Ah, bello, il computer in loop che vede dove sto andando. Bello, bello, bello. Peccato che io però non abbia quel computer, non c'ho manco un computer. Vabbè. Bella. A domani o quando cazzo è. Comunque, non so se pure te hai visto, c'era scritto 40 messaggi e poi è arrivato un salto di 80. Non è quello che ho visto io. 80 messaggi mai. Ah boh, bella.